So I know that your early ventures into everything automotive was somewhat fueled by your dad's love of cars. But I also know that your mum wasn't so keen on the idea. So do you think that like those two opposing energies like actually balanced each other out? And have they kind of been both quite supportive of your journey and the road that you've decided to take?
Well, I mean, I think for any mother, I'm not a mother yet. I hope one day, but I think for any mother, it's scary, right, for a child to be in motorsports, even though it's not as dangerous as it looks, and the statistics don't reflect that imagination of how dangerous it is. So fear can run away with you essentially. But if you look at there's high risk, it's not maybe as high as one would imagine from looking at the machines and listening to the sound and watching people race them. I doubt that the risk factor is as high as a mother's fear would imagine. Fear is useful. It can be harnessed to protect you. So, whenever I face fear on the track or off road, I don't overreact by pulling back too far, but I definitely pause and consider, why am I feeling this way? Um, and usually, when I tune into my instinct, it's either that I'm not comfortable enough to go ahead with what I'm doing or to progress further than the limit that I've reached. And that doesn't mean that I never will. It just means for that moment, I just need to take a minute. So that's useful. It protects you. When my and During my last race, I was in Jordan Baja, the cross country Baja rally, and there was this one moment where at the top of a dune, and it was sandy, but with rocks in between the sand all over the place, and it was so steep that I couldn't see what was coming. And I felt fear, even though I had approached dunes where I couldn't see what was next before. But my instincts, I wasn't afraid. In that moment, I was afraid. And the co-pilot Stephanie told me, "You're not sure." I said, "No, I'm not sure." He said, "Let's find out." And I said, "No." There's a no there. So we turned around. We did a semicircle, and then I found a sandy part which didn't have rocks through it, and I took that line down the dune. I still couldn't see what was coming, but I didn't feel afraid. And out of curiosity, I looked to the right to see what the terrain looked like on the place that I had been afraid, and it was full of rocks. So the chances of us not having such a smooth landing were quite high, and that really that fear had indicated to me that I was prepared to take that chance. So fear always has this negative element about it, and I don't usually like to entertain my fears or let them overcome me. But if you use them a bit as a guide, they can be a protection. So my mother's fears, I try not to adopt hers because they're not rational. She's not on the track with me. But that concept of being afraid, if you utilize it if you accept it and open into it as a guide, can be, can give you, he'll just get into a car. He wants to see how it works, and he will just not think twice about flooring it,
Mm.
provided there's not no one else around. And that impulse and that aggression is also essential in motorsport. So you said it well. I think that equilibrium, that balance, serves me well. I still learning how to make the most of all the elements that exist within me or within any person. It's a
Mm.
balance. You see, the more experience you have, the more wisdom you gain as to how to maintain that inner solidity, that equilibrium. So I think I'm getting better at it. I don't know. I hope so, but that's the goal. The goal is to find that balance. You know.
Mm. I think it's so powerful what you just said there because when you go down dunes, you never know what's on the other side. So already, there's a fear, there is like an unknown, but you kind of go headstrong into it. But for you to kind of actually pause at that moment and have like this overwhelming feeling of intuition, which perhaps was, kind of maybe sprung by fear, but in the end, it was an intuition. That's really interesting, and I love what you said about like we are all finding out the different elements and what's within us, and And also, as you sort of alluded to there, like it may look kind of crazy, and to people that are not within this world, they don't realize that it's actually very measured risk for the most part. So that's super interesting. Listen to more insights on the Mission Makers podcast through Apple, Spotify, and YouTube.